All right, what's up, guys? My name is Jordan, and we have Ryan from Breakout Cards. I'm from Sports Card Analytics, and this is episode 2 of Moneyball Cards. Today, we're going to talk about bust in the hobby, sports cards. You buy that guy, and you have a lot of hype, and you have a lot of hope in him, and he just doesn't quite pan out. You spend a lot of money and all you see is the values just continually go down. We're going to talk about those guys in three different sports. Ryan has a baseball player, I have a basketball player, and we're also going to talk about one guy in football.
I wanted to briefly talk about one card we each picked up. So something we're going to do on future episodes, first 5 minutes or so, is talk about one of the pickups we got the past week and kind of explain why we bought the card. So that way you guys can see what, as analysts, what we're buying in the industry. So this card I picked up at the National. I wanted this card for a while, and prices kind of skyrocketed. Didn't have a chance to buy it before then. Luckily, a dealer had it pretty cheap overall, and I was able to scoop this up for $200. So this is a Bobby Jones rookie card. I believe this is 1926. Yeah, so 1926. So take a look at this right here. Let's see it. Now this is a grade 4.5, and here's the reason why I picked up Bobby Jones. If you look at the top 10 lists of golfers, Bobby Jones is always like top three, top five golfers of all time. He actually quit his career really early on, and he ended up winning 13 majors on top of a Grand Slam. Greatest golfers of all time. We're talking about a card from a 1926 as a grade of 4.5, just something you don't see every day.
The card that I picked up over the past week, I wasn't at the National. I didn't have the funds to travel, and work, kind of held me up. But I picked up this Baker Mayfield gold Prism rookie card. It's numbered out of 25. I got it for $100. I don't know why these are so cheap. Maybe it's because it has a patch. Uh, it has the stitches on it and everything. It's the patch from the jersey number. So I for $100, this is a steal to me, especially being a Cleveland fan. I can PC this, or I can maybe put it up one day, just for a few $1,000s, and someone would say, "Oh wow, that's a gold numbered out of 25 Baker Mayfield rookie. That's got to be worth thousands. I'm willing to spend that much on it, and I'll turn a huge profit on it." So that's what I picked up over the past week.
And again, two different investing philosophies. This one's going to be a quick return, something that you can expect maybe in a year or two, if maybe even faster, once that one comp goes away. Mine, I'm going to be holding on to 10, 20 years unless I'm able to upgrade this card, and we'll see what ends up happening with that. But just shows you that there's multiple ways to invest in different cards, whether it's brand new or older. So yeah, let's start talking about my worst modern investment, and that's going to be a player named Miguel Sano. Still plays in the league, but unfortunately, he's one of the worst players in the league. It's kind of comparable to Chris Davis. And Chris Davis had his highs in the league, but then he started really slumping. And matter of fact, today he actually retired from baseball. So you guys kind of know what day we're recording on. But Sano, I thought was going to be one of these players that hits 500 home runs for the Minnesota Twins. This was back when I was investing in Stanton and I was looking for the next player to replace him. And I thought Sano was going to be that guy. So the reason why I really invested in Sano is his exit velocity. And we're talking about exit velocity back in first episode about Stanton. Well, Miguel Sano is right up there with Stanton in exit velocity. He's like 99th percentile, and he just hits mashes home runs. If you watch his home runs, they go so far. But the unfortunate side of things is he strikes out so much, and he just can't hit for average. So Miguel Sano is in the 1% for strikeouts. Like, he strikes out the most in the league, plus he chases a ton outside the strike zone. And when you have that chase rate on top of having a really high strikeout rate, you're going to have a low batting average. And Sano averages right now about a 210. Now you might be wondering, like, dang, Ryan, you invested in someone that bats 210, can hit home runs, but isn't that great of a player. Why is that? So back when I was investing in Miguel Sano, he was actually the fourth ranked prospect on the top 100 list. And he was actually ahead of people like Francisco Lindor, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and Noah Syndergaard. All those guys were in the top 10 that year. And Miguel Sano was number 4. the Twins, and they also had Byron Buxton, who was your number one prospect at the time. So the Twins had a very, very good farm system, having Sano and Buxton both in the top 10. And they're going to go on top of a great team with that. I mean, anytime you have two top 10 prospects, people think you're going to do well. I mean, look at the Seattle Mariners right now with Julio Rodriguez and also Kelenic. People are super excited about them. Equivalent back in 2014, 2015 era with Miguel Sano. Now, the reason also why I got into Miguel Sano really early, besides finding the replacement for Stanton, is he had over 100 home runs. I think it was 115 on top of my head by the age of 21 in the minor leagues. And that's after missing a season for Tommy John surgery. He was one of those rare cases where a position player had to get Tommy John surgery, and he missed almost a full season for that. So imagine at already 21 having 115 home runs, or whatever he ended up having at that age. I thought he was going to be a pure power hitter. And in the minor leagues, he was batting close to 280 to 300 in the different leagues. Now, this kind of shows in quality of pitching from the minor leagues to the major leagues, because everyone looks at minor league stats and they try to translate it to the major leagues. And based off of sample sizes and data, that's the best way to do it. But you have to remember that the level of pitching goes way up. And when reevaluating Sano, once again, I looked at his strikeout rate in the minor leagues, and people are talking about that as a big concern about Sano. Is he going to translate into the major leagues? And unfortunately, he's one of those players that just never developed an eye and did a lot worse. A AAA pitcher is going to get smoked in the major leagues if they're average in AAA. The pitching level is just that much higher every single level you get up. And if you're looking at like top 100 lists right now, most of your players that you see in the top 100 aren't going to last in the major leagues more than 2 or 3 years. In fact, most of your top 10 players are going to be out of the league pretty fast. A lot of it's a gamble, but you can look at the data and try to make guesses. I looked at Miguel Sano's data with over 100 home runs, batting between 280 and 300, and I took that gamble on his strikeouts. And unfortunately, I lost. Sure, he made it into an all-star game and played in a home run derby. That's all great and all, but batting 210 right now isn't. So it wasn't a full bust. It wasn't one of those players that only plays a year and is out of the league. He's still playing right now, but I just don't see him going that far. And another thing about Sano, which really isn't that good, is he's a poor defensive player. He has to play first base or it has to be a DH. No one wants someone batting 210 that's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs as a first baseman or a DH. So I can see him being out of the league or signing a minor league contract. Personally, I would not advise you to invest in any Miguel Sano cards right now. And just to kind of show you how much I invested in Sano cards, they probably have like 200 or 300 of his cards. My best being a Bowman red refractor autograph, number to 5. Hurts.
Ouch. But I do have to ask you on a hope meter, one being throw all your cards away, and 10 being hold on to your cards and possibly buy more. Where do you hold Sano on the hope meter?
I put him as a 2 or a 3. And the reason for that is, sure, he has power, but if you can't hit the pitching, it's just not going to help you. And the only way I can see Sano doing well is getting traded to another team, possibly having a batting coach fix his issues. But we don't know that always happens. And sometimes, again, one of the episodes we're actually going to be talking about next week is players developing late. Maybe Miguel Sano can be one of these players, like Nelson Cruz, who is also on the Twins. But personally, I don't see it happening. I just put him at a 2 or 3, hoping that he has one of these weeks where it's like 5 or 6 home runs. People start buying his cards, and I liquidate them all.
Well, I have a lot of excitement for Adley Rushman. He's coming to Charlotte next week, and he's number 1 now on the top 100. So I was really excited to get his autograph, but now you kind of turned that excitement down a little bit for me going to get his autograph. I hope he pans out though.
Sweet. So let's talk about the NBA and Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, Lonzo Ball. So he was considered a bust over the first couple of years. He was drafted in 2017 behind Markelle Fultz, who is kind of considered a bust. But he was right ahead of Jason Tatum, and also Donovan Mitchell was a few picks later. So there's a lot of hype to him, and him being in LA, playing for the Lakers, being in a Lakers uniform in the second biggest market in the NBA. Yeah, there's a lot of eyes on him, and it's safe to say he didn't quite live up to expectations. I know Jeff, Sports Card Investor, has put his name out there a lot over the past year or so. And I took a look at his numbers, and every single year for the past 4 years, he's played around 30 minutes a game. So I kept it to just strictly his box score numbers because his minutes are around the same. And his first year, he scored around 10 points a game. He wasn't really known as a scorer. His biggest trait was his passing and his potential to get triple doubles in a Lakers uniform. That's huge. Just triple double machine. Uh, he averaged 10 points, 7 assists, and 7 rebounds, and around 3 turnovers a game that first year. The issue was his shooting percentage was just awful. He shot 36% overall and 45% from the free throw line. And in basketball, when you're investing in basketball cards or you're looking at prospects, they say look at their free throw percentage, because the free throw percentage is a good indicator on whether they can be a good 3-point shooter in the future. If a guy's a bad 3-point shooter early on, but his free throw percentage is like 90%, that means he has the traits and the qualities to become a good shooter overall. So the 45% basically said that he's not going to be a good shooter in the league. He's not going to be able to score. So the second year, he disappointed again. 9 points a game, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. He shot 42% from the free throw line. So his free throw shooting got worse. And him being in the big market, people basically just wanted him gone. So LeBron came in to LA, and I guess he just asked for him to be part of the trade for Anthony Davis. And he ended up going to the second smallest market in the NBA. So all eyes were off of Lonzo Ball, and it definitely helped him out. His numbers improved dramatically. His past year in 2021, he scored 14 points a game. His assists were at 6 assists and 5 rebounds, but his free throw shooting went up to 78%. So he just increased his free throw shooting. Like you normally don't see this with players and their free throw shooting going up, but he became one of the above average for the league for 3-point shooting, which people just didn't think was possible with Lonzo Ball. So he shot 38% from the 3-point line, and his potential started to come out. And now free agency hit, and he went to the third biggest market in the NBA. So now all eyes are back on Lonzo Ball. If you have Lonzo Ball cards and you just bought some, they just went up a little bit because there were some rumors that he was going to go back to LA and there was going to be eyes on him, but he went to Chicago, and that's the third biggest market. So I don't know if the pressure is going to make him worse again, or if he's going to be able to live up to it. But for my hope meter and Lonzo Ball, and Jeff, if you're watching this, I think you're right. My hope meter for Lonzo Ball is around a 8 or a 9. If I have his cards, I'm going to hold on to him. I might buy some more if I see some good prices out there for his rookie card. And if he becomes that guy, a triple double machine, being an above average 3-point shooter, hitting these free throws at this rate in Chicago, his prices are going to skyrocket. He's going to live up to his hype, and he's definitely a guy I hope to have cards of. I don't have any right now, but I do plan on, after doing this research, I do plan on going out and getting some Lonzo Ball rookie cards at a good price.
All right, so now let's talk about our third player of the day. We're going to the NFL, and we're talking about Mitch Trubisky. So if you guys don't know the whole story behind Mitch Trubisky, he was drafted before both Watson and Mahomes. And if you look at how good of quarterbacks they are compared to where Trubisky is at everyone thinks the Bears made a huge mistake, and obviously hindsight is 2020. But did they make the right pick all the way back then or not? And for investors and people that collect cards, did they make the right choice at the moment buying Trubisky over both Mahomes and Watson? Because if you ended up buying Mahomes cards when he first got drafted compared to today, you made great money. If you bought Watson cards back then as well, you did phenomenal. But if you bought Trubisky cards, his cards are so cheap. So looking at that perspective, first off, what did you think of their decision drafting Trubisky? Was it number 2 overall? Yeah, number 2 versus drafting Mahomes and Watson.
Well, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, so we had the number one pick in that draft, and we got Myles Garrett. And I didn't want Trubisky; I didn't like him. So at the time, I wanted Watson. He had a lot of hype, so I think the Bears should have taken him. But looking at his numbers for that first year, he looked really bad. His numbers were awful. He was 4-8. His passing percentage was about 60%, and he threw around 2,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's not a good start, but I do think that teams shouldn't put quarterbacks out there to start the very first year, because Mahomes only played one game that year, and he did play pretty well. But at the time, you would still want Trubisky cards because he was starting and Mahomes wasn't playing. But I did look at the strength of schedule of that year, and I was curious. I was like, why was he so bad? Maybe his strength of schedule, maybe his opponents were just really good. And the one strength of schedule article had them as the hardest schedule that year. And another one that included home field advantage, they did some metrics and put in home field advantage, had them as the fourth hardest schedule that year. So he was playing against some really tough opponents. So I do give him a pass on that first year. And I looked at the second year strength of schedule, and it was the second easiest. And his numbers showed he definitely got better that year. But I do think they should have taken Patrick Mahomes. I mean, hindsight is 2020, but Patrick Mahomes should have been the pick at number 2. But at the time, it looked like Deshaun Watson should have been that guy.
Yeah, so off of all the articles I was reading back then, a lot of people were saying Watson, even at the time, should have been picked over Trubisky. People were thinking Watson was number 1, probably Trubisky number 2, and some people even had Mahomes into the second round. Most people don't realize, but Mahomes was a baseball player for the longest time before he transitioned into a quarterback, so he's relatively new to the position. But what I found really interesting is Trubisky didn't start until his senior year or junior year. I don't remember exactly what year it was in college, but the past years he didn't start at all. And his team ended up going, I think, only won like 8 games, lost like 4 or 5 during the same exact year. And he had a lot less reps than both Mahomes and also Watson. And we're talking about sitting out that first year. We're talking about a college quarterback who only had 1 year of experience, came off of losing the last few games of the year, and then going put straight into the NFL expecting to succeed right away, because the Bears just have not had much luck at all in the quarterback position. And they drafted Trubisky number 2, hoping he was their hope and savior for the team, picking up a guy who only had 1 year experience in college. I'm sure that translates for some people into the NFL, but for Trubisky, I mean, he didn't play for an SEC school. I think he played for what, North Carolina?
Yeah, it was North Carolina Tar Heels.
Yeah, so sure they're a Power 5 school, but we're not talking about him playing for an Alabama. We're not talking about him playing for Florida, where the strength of schedule is really, really tough. So that's something to think about as well when looking at the quarterbacks, is how much reps did they actually have in college before going into the NFL? Because you need to get those reps in. It's like a minor league baseball player that only plays half season or full season going into the major leagues. And we're talking about earlier, Sano, how he did extremely well in the minors, then going into the pros don't do well. Like same with college quarterbacks. A lot of them aren't going to translate into the NFL. I know right now everyone's talking about Herbert, everyone's talking about Tua, Jalen Hurts, and all these other quarterbacks that are brand new into the league. But 5 years from now, most people aren't going to know all these quarterbacks because most of them aren't going to pan out. So it's something to take a look at with that.
And if you're someone that's holding on to a bunch of Trubisky cards, because I do know a lot of people that have shown me like, hey, I bought these cards back in 2017 when I should have bought the Mahomes, and they have all these Trubisky RPAs. They have all this really cool stuff. If you're holding on to it, I I wouldn't panic right now. I did take a look at his numbers, and I eliminated that first year. He had the one of the toughest schedules, and he didn't play very well. So if you eliminate that first year and look at his record, he was 25-13. He actually wasn't that bad with Chicago. I know they just took Justin Fields, and he was pretty upset about that. And now he's a backup with the Bills and Josh Allen, who we may talk about in the future. But his numbers looked pretty good with the mid to easier schedules. Because the second year he had 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, and that's pretty good. Like he actually isn't that bad of a quarterback. So this bust label that people are putting on him is basically due to Mahomes being drafted behind him. So there may be some hope out there. I do have a hope meter rating for the people holding on the Trubisky cards. I'm not going out and buying any, but I wouldn't say throw yours away. I would put him around like the 5 or 6 range if you're holding on to those Trubisky cards.
Yeah, and one thing I was gonna say with Josh Allen is look how much he's improved this last year. People were thinking Josh Allen originally was a bust until he came out and had this breakthrough season. So the coaching staff at the Bills knows how to work on quarterbacks. And being a backup to someone like Josh Allen, who's now considered a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the league, he's going to learn quite a lot in that system. And if he ends up re-signing there or ends up getting traded to another team or whatever ends up happening with them, he's going to have another opportunity out there. I know a lot of people are out there super excited about Jameis Winston after being behind Drew Brees for 1 year later in his career. So Mitch could be a kind of a sneaky move right there.
Yeah, best case scenario. This is a bad thing to say. Best case scenario for people with Trubisky cards is Allen goes down with an injury and he steps in, and nothing changes with the offense. He comes in and he plays really well, and they make the playoffs, and suddenly he's a hero. I mean, it's happened plenty of times in the past with backup quarterbacks coming in, and Trubisky isn't a slouch. Like, he's not terrible. He's not going to come in and just throw a bunch of interceptions. He's actually pretty good. It's just that Mahomes cloud hanging over his head is always going to be there, and people are going to keep thinking of Mahomes because Mahomes is on track to be one of the greatest of all time. Which is insane to say for a guy that's only been the league for 4 years and played 3 full seasons. But don't panic on Trubisky yet. Let's see how this season goes for him with the Bills.
Yeah. So one last thing, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a like and then put down in the comment section down below who's your biggest bust. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about late bloomers. So let's say your prospect doesn't pan out for the first year or two. Should you sell all your inventory? Should you throw away his cards, or should you hold on to them? You're going to watch that in the next one.